Hi everybody, it's Cheyenne with Wisewood Apothecary. Thanks so much for joining me here again. It's been a long, hard winter of frigid temperatures, so my camera wouldn't work. I kept getting sick from my kids and from work, and also I got a shoulder injury, which has not been fun. I have been juggling physiotherapy and acupuncture and doctor's visits and tests and all sorts of things trying to figure out what happened. It literally happened in my sleep, so that's not fun. Or even a fun story. But anyways, thanks so much for joining me here again. So we're going to look at April's plant, Alfalfa. Alfalfa is usually up a little bit stronger by now in the season, but it's a little bit slow going, especially in my yard this year. So I'll just take a peek here. So down here is the little alfalfa plant, all these tiny little leaves here. So here is its telltale trifoliate leaf. So even though this looks like it's 3 leaves, it's actually 1, 2, 3 leaflets, which make up 1 leaf. So this is called a trifoliate leaf. Other plants that have a trifoliate leaf are like clover. So they do look a little bit similar when they're first growing up like this, but once they get bigger and more mature, alfalfa has longer leaflets, whereas clover has more rounded ones. So it is definitely not the same plant, and they have very different flowers as well. But yeah, so this is little teeny tiny alfalfa here. Now, if you've been kind of following along the Herb of the Month Club so far, you will know that alfalfa is one of my favorite foods, one of my favorite greens at all. So I love cooking with it. It does make a good pot herb, especially the more mature grown-up leaves. But the young baby leaves like this can be eaten fresh. Now, not from my yard because I have a dog, and not from your yard if you have a dog as well, because they pee and poop all over the place, so you've got to worry about pesticides and different sort of contaminants like that. But if you have a nice wild clean source of it, it is fantastic, edible, and before I had a dog, my yard was my clean source of it, and I did eat from it frequently. So I would make something called a lawn herb salad, where I would take like dandelion greens and alfalfa and clover and things like that that you'd find on a lawn and make a nice salad out of it. It's fantastic. But using weedy type plants like alfalfa, you've got to be careful about contamination. Either they're sprayed like dandelions, or they are growing in disturbed areas like construction sites, ditches, alleyways, things like that, where it might not be the cleanest environment to be harvesting. So definitely take that into account when you're thinking about what to harvest. Alfalfa has extensive uses. It's one of my favorite is a really practical use, which is making a toothbrush from the root. So basically you got to dig up a nice piece of root, about 5 inches long, and start drying it out over a couple days. As it dries out, you keep kind of hammering an end of it. So you can use 2 rocks banged together, you can use a hammer, you can use a mortar and pestle, whatever you've got available to kind of hammer out the end. And what that does is it'll start to fray into bristles as it dries and as it gets hammered. So it's actually pretty amazing. So you can keep that for a while. Alfalfa is a pretty interesting plant. It can have roots growing 30 meters deep kind of thing. So it can get very deep into the ground. It is therefore a very mineral rich plant. But also being said, it can pull a lot of the contaminants and heavy metals and things like that from the deep soil. So you got to think of that and where you're harvesting. So the root toothbrush is fun. And if you need to make a toothpaste, you can get some charcoal from, like powdered charcoal from your fire, and mix it with a little bit of water for a paste and brush your teeth that way. So especially if you're trying to like survive in a group of people or live out in the wild with a group of people, it's a good idea to have good oral hygiene. So after you kind of brush your teeth with that, you can chew up some mint leaves, for example, and get nice minty fresh breath. So it's pretty fantastic what you can do with natural stuff. So yeah, the leaves are edible and fantastic. The younger ones can be eaten raw, and the older ones are better as a pot herb, so cooked. So you can saute it, stir fry, pop it in a soup, all sorts of things like that. If you want to use it later in the year, like in the winter, you're going to want to harvest the young leaves and dry them and powder them for use throughout the rest of the year. And that powder you can just add to smoothies, baking mixes, soups, sauces, all sorts of things like that. Now, the seeds are also an important edible of the plant. So I'm pretty sure most people have heard of eating alfalfa sprouts before. That's sprouted from the seeds. So it is something that you can do, but in order to sprout, you need to make sure that you know what you're doing, that you're using sterile equipment, and that you have a consistent temperature so that you don't develop botulism, for example, or any other harmful bacteria, because that is prime breeding ground for them. Yeah, so basically alfalfa is heavily grown as a livestock food, really. So many people around Alberta know that it is fed to cows and all sorts of livestock, but they don't know that it is actually super nutritious for us too, as long as it's from a clean environment. So the leaf has about 18% protein, which is quite high for a plant-based protein. And so that is fantastic for helping to get some extra protein in your diet, especially if you're a plant-based eater. Yeah, so that's kind of the basic rundown of alfalfa. I will come back in a couple weeks and show you it more grown up. Hopefully we'll see if it gets any bigger, but any bigger, any quicker. Yeah, so feel free to leave me any comments if you have any questions. Definitely subscribe if you'd like to stay in the loop. And feel free to join us on our Facebook group, Herb of the Month Club. It's a private, free community. Or else you can join as a paid member, which has a lot more perks and has flexible pricing. So basically it's pay what you can. There's a $30, $60, or $90 option for the whole year. So yeah, basically get involved if you'd like to. So that's at our website at wisewoodapothecary.com. And thanks so much for joining me. We'll see you again. Thank you.